Welcome to Junior Mining Weekly, StockPulse.com production, where we track the action of the individual equities markets within the commodities sector. This week's sponsor, Amex Exploration. Amex trades on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol AMX.V. Amex has made multiple high-grade gold discoveries in the Abitibi Greenstone Gold District of Quebec, Canada. Amex is also in the middle of a fully funded 100,000-meter drill program aimed at building ounces on at least 3 gold zones while exploring for more zones along more than 15 kilometers of regional faults. Amex also in this broadcast with some nice results from the Eastern Gold Zone. Amex Exploration, AMX.V on the Venture Exchange. Before we get to the news here, Al, let's talk about, as we make this move up, some of the companies certainly have participated in this move up, and maybe some even a little ahead of schedule. How do you identify maybe staying away from some of those that are top heavy, and how do you put a true value to them? And obviously we're trying to identify those ones that haven't been found. So before we get to the good cream of the crop that you see that still have the move in them, how do you see this? And we're in a contrarian business, but sometimes there is a cult mentality, if you will.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, and something I kind of touched on a little bit in past shows, Rob, is that how you value these things and what to sort of look for. And we're trying to, as investors, we're trying to find those that have a lot of upside potential and avoid those that could be overvalued. And looking at a couple of the key sort of culty stocks that I see out there right now are two companies, Great Bear Resources and Novo Resources, NVO. On the NVO front, I'll start with that one. The people that run the company are very good at telling stories about exploration. And they had seen a valuation close to $1 billion a couple of years ago when they had one of the conferences in the States. I think it was a Denver Gold Show. They did they're looking for conglomerate gold that's close to surface. It's high grade in some spots, but the problem that I see with the company is the continuity of the high grade. And you can even see it in some of the press releases that they talk about. I mean, in the promotional stuff they put out, they're talking about vast areas of hundreds of kilometers of gold distribution. But then when they actually do samples, they have some high grade zones that they kind of selectively sample based on what they're seeing with their metal detectors. They can actually metal detect this stuff because it's right at surface. But then they step over a ways, and the grade gets a lot smaller. And so this is a situation where I think investors really want to be careful. When you're looking at a company like Novo that has a valuation of three a share, and they've got 178 million shares out, you're looking at a valuation of over $400 million there. And I just don't see that a company like that deserves a valuation of 400 million plus. I mean, they have prospects, but so far, from what I see, the high grade is way too patchy. They're not going to. You wouldn't be able to go in there and selectively mine like they've selectively sampled their results. And so that's a culty stock that, even in the face of it dropping over half from its highs and a chart that I don't think is that constructive at this point in time, the cheerleaders just keep on cheering like it's like it's going to be the next Witwatersrand of Africa. And I just think it's too patchy, and I'd be very careful with something like that. The other one is Great Bear, and Great Bear also has a valuation north of $400 million. And, to put that into context, not long ago, an Australian company bought out Newmont's assets in Red Lake, Ontario for not a whole lot more than what valuation Great Bear has. Now let's put that into context. At the Goldcorp mines, you've got a series of underground workings, and they've got some of the most prospective rock in the area to do their additional drilling to find more ounces. Plus, they've got more ounces. Plus, they've our Goldcorp, as they were expanding outside of Red Lake, Ontario, the Red Lake stuff kind of went unloved for a long period of time, and so they've got this huge land package, underground operations, the potential to increase their profitability off of that underground operations, and just as much exploration potential, if not more, than Great Bear. And yet, the Australian company didn't have to pay a whole lot more than the valuation that Great Bear has right now. That's why I call it a culty stock. Then if you look at the news releases, even in the news releases, if you look at it with a discerning eye, the cheerleaders don't look at it with a discerning eye, they look at it with a cheerleader's eye. But if you look at it with a discerning eye, what you'll see is that yes, there is gold mineralization over a large area, but I think it would be very difficult to permit an open pit mine in Red Lake, Ontario. It's an area where you don't have any problems permitting underground operations. So looking at this from an underground operation, then you've got to look at, okay, well, where is the high grade continuity? And that's where I think that they're going to have more issues that suggests that this valuation is pretty rich at over 400 million. If you look at sort of the lenses of the high grade, the continuity, it's not nearly as widespread as what they're talking about, 4 or 5 kilometers or more of disseminated gold mineralization. So, again, it's another one that you want to be careful with. And there's a trend in the stock charts that you'll see in these culty kind of stocks when they're rolling over and they look like they could have some more downside. They tend to have not a spiky top. They tend to have more of a rolling over top. And if you look at Novo, I think you'll see currently a rolling over type of a stock chart. And also, Great Bear has now failed a couple times at this sort of $8.70 to $9 range, and it seems to be the top on it. But even in the last few months, you've seen it kind of rolling top. And I think that both of these have some downside risk that you want to be careful of. I think there's a lot better stocks out there to be putting your money into, and we've talked about some of them, and I think we can talk about some of them on this show as well.
Yeah, certainly. Well, let's dig into that right now, and one that seems to hit the mark more often than not here. One of your favorite plays with a fantastic chart, Skeena Resources, SKE, and the Ventures. More good results here at SK Creek. These guys just keep delivering.
We've been following SKE for a while now, Rob, and they just keep delivering. I think we initially started covering it at about 60 cents or so, and now it's hit a high of $1.20. Come off a little bit, but it's been a very tremendously good performer for the last, I would say, since about the summertime, August. What I really liked about these guys is I like the new look at an old mine. The SK Creek mine was a phenomenally profitable mine for Newmont, found by Murray Peslam, and what made it so good back in the day when gold was a lot cheaper was the extreme high grade. But even in that high grade that you needed back when gold was $30 an ounce or $300 an ounce, never got back to 30 there in my career. But yeah, when it was in $300 an ounce, you basically couldn't mine anything under a half an ounce. Well, anything over 10 grams these days with, that half an ounce is tremendously exciting. And they've gone in there now and they're going in and looking at all that material that was left behind by the old miners. And they're having a tremendous success with that, Rob. As we have talked about several times on the show, they just announced some recent results: 31 meters of 14.82 grams per ton gold. There's some high grade silver in that as well. The news release before that with drill results: 36 meters of 14.73 grams. So you see what I mean there? That half a gram or half an ounce stuff that was left behind by the old miners, these guys are having no problems finding a lot of it. And I've sort of been looking at this one as maybe this is the next one with a $200 to $400 million valuation that, we've started to cover pretty early. And I think with a little bit of help in the price of gold, and they keep on the trend that they are with the drilling, that 250, 400 million valuation, these could be the next candidates for those ones. So it's all about valuation, and when you are in the cycle and what you want to be paying for these kind of assets. And I like the blue sky potential of Skeena a lot.
Okay, next one up, one we haven't covered before here, O3 Mining up here in Quebec. Some good gold intersects at Alpha. Why don't you run through O3's news?
Yeah, O3 Mining is part of the Osisko group of companies, and they just had results out 8.6 meters of 5.3 grams per ton gold at their Alpha project. They've also had some high grade over 10 grams kind of stuff in that as well. Really strong team involved with this. These Osisko guys are tremendously talented. 46 million shares out on the company. So you're looking at about a 100 million valuation. They've got their hands on a really good piece of property that I think could take them a long way. And, with these kind of results, that kind of a team, their ability to raise money, I think that this is another one that, you could look for 200 million plus valuation on it this year, with gold somewhere between 16 and 18, which I think is well within striking distance. It's not a big stretch because we're pretty much at 1600 right now. But I think we're going to have a big move in the price of gold, 10 to 20% kind of move this year, from the lows to the highs. And in that kind of an environment, an O3 Mining will, could easily see a 200 million valuation. So I like what I see on the project. I like where they are. I like the team. I like their ability to raise money. And also when the light is shining on the space, these are the kind of guys that, get a lot of attention in that kind of a situation.
Okay, moving on here to one we have covered before, Contact Gold. Some nice results here in Nevada. Some oxide gold mineralization at Green Springs. Run through this one.
Yeah, with, in oxides, that's some pretty sweet grades. 38 meters of 3.53% gold. Mother Nature has done some of the leaching work for you there, and you find that kind of stuff in Nevada. That's super high grade for oxide. And again, it's in Nevada. I'm a big fan of Nevada because, companies that have success there tend to get what I call the Nevada premium. And, this is the kind of results that can get you that Nevada premium for an oxide kind of discovery. Anything over even half a gram is pretty sweet stuff. But these guys are getting 3.53 over 38 meters. They get, a gram over 22 meters. So they're getting some size and some sweet grades in an oxide kind of situation. And 82 million shares out on it, trading at 16 cents. When the news went out the other day, in its 52-week trading range, it's only 4 cents from its low. So yeah, this is one that I think people want to pay attention to because they keep delivering this, and if they can keep showing size potential with that highly profitable kind of rock and grades, I think that this one could have a much sweeter valuation than its current valuation as well. So yeah, contact C is the symbol, and I like this one a lot.
Next one up here, Silver Viper down in your neck of the woods. Some good drilling down in Mexico. Some nice results at Virginia.
Yeah, Silver Viper, and is a Mexico play. I like Mexico. I live in Mexico. My company's focused in Mexico. Costs are low in Mexico. Geology is phenomenal in Mexico, and you got a good season to do a lot of work. Their latest results was the highlight was 196 grams per ton of gold and 984 grams per ton of silver over a half a meter. In these kind of high grade systems, that's what you're kind of looking for. And now the trick is to find more of that kind of high grade. They're getting some good distribution of their gold and silver over decent lengths, 7 meters of 14 grams near that high grade stuff. So yeah, it's definitely one that's catching my attention. The more work they do, and I like that kind of trend, Rob. There's an old saying that the more work you do on a good project, the more nice surprises you get. And I think that this one is one that can get us some nice surprises. 12.5, 13 million valuation. I like their chances to keep delivering good results. So that's one that maybe its target is 50 to 100 million in this year. So keep a close eye on that one. I like it as well.
Next up, Premier Gold Mines. That's PG. Nice drilling update out and begin some exploration in Hasaga.
Yeah, they're a bit of these days. Premier kind of goes through cycles. In the sort of challenging markets, they tend to get a little oversold, and then in the good markets, they tend to get overbought. And right now, I think that they're in the oversold category. The 52-week range on them is $1.41 to $2.55 at the moment. It's trading at $1.50. Yet the quality of their mining operations, the quality of their pipeline of projects, their ability to raise money puts them in a category of very few that I see in the space of sort of middle to small middle tiers that could grow into big middle tiers or maybe even majors of the future. Ewan Downey, that runs the company, he's a really sharp guy. He's an excellent explorationist, and he's surrounded himself with good production people. I just think that this is an underloved company at this point in time. In fact, I might try to reach out to Ewan Downey because I really think that this is one of those hidden treasures kind of companies that we should do a show on. They're for the investor that wants exposure to the gold space with a little less risk, but also the potential for exceptional growth. And that's sort of exactly what we look for that kind of show. So, yeah, Premier Gold Mines, definitely one you should have high on your shopping list. It's at the top of mind when it comes to middle tiers that can grow into much bigger companies.
And last one up here, our title sponsor, Amex Exploration. That's AMX on the venture. Some more sweet stuff, this time at the Eastern Gold Zone.
Well, yeah, and it's also getting them a new 52-week high, and it's been a great pick. I started covering this one at about 50 cents back in late 2018. And throughout this year, they've done very good. It's great that we have them on as a sponsor because, this is the perfect kind of company for our audience. They've got their latest results, 8.5 meters at 29.4 grams per ton gold, so some sweet ounce type material, and they're getting that at the deep end of their exploration so far. And so now they kind of have got that kind of grade from the top of the system near surface all the way down to 400 or 500 meters. And these kind of systems, they go on for a long ways, Rob. That's why I kind of think that this is the ideal sort of sponsor for our shows, because I think we can keep watching this one and keep watching it grow into a much bigger company. I mean, even at today's price of $1.80, they still have like only 100 million valuation. And earlier I talked about how someone like a Great Bear has a really rich valuation. Well, for what these guys have delivered and the size of the system and the potential to deliver more, I think that they're at the low end of the valuation curve in the time frame that they're in. So yeah, Amex continues to keep getting these high grades. They're getting it in multiple zones. They've done in a big structural trend, and now they're doing. They've also got the potential to find more of these zones. And there's a couple of the big zones that they've found so far seem to be from 1 to 500 meters hitting this high grade material. And I can't wait until they start getting deeper into the system, because oftentimes in these kind of vein systems, the juiciest stuff is well below 500 meters from surface, and yet these guys are already getting the sweet stuff at surface down to 500 meters. So it's their high grade stuff is looking very nice on the continuity, and their focus and the team. I think we're lucky to have someone like them on as a sponsor, and I think that they've got a lot of blue sky ahead of them.
Appreciate the breakdown there, Al. Before we close the show, I guess let's end it with gold on the door of 1,600. The equities have to start moving, I would think. Might this be one of the last opportunities here to get a hold of some of these deals? Is 1,600 maybe a magic number and things start to get lift here?
Yeah, well, nothing really goes up in a straight line, and not all boats rise together. But, I think our days of super cheap valuations relative to what these companies are finding are getting fewer and fewer. We look at I look at the trend over the last, let's say, 8 months or so since September. We had a high. The high there was around 1550, which had been a multi-year sort of resistance level. And then we had somewhat of a correction, came down to around 1450 in November, touched that level a couple times, and then since then we've had a rising bottom, higher lows, and higher highs. It broke out significantly in the new year. It was trading at around 1525. It got all the way up to 16 and a bit on an intraday. It didn't close that high. The highest close was around, let's say, 1570. And now it took another run at 1,600 in late January, came off of that, back down to 1,550, but again, a rising bottom. And since then, it's been on a trend in February here that suggests to me that it's just looking for a reason to go over 1,600. And I think between 1,600 and, let's say, 2,000, a lot of these companies that we've covered on this show that I think have reasonable to cheap valuations, I think that the cheap valuation end of that argument will go away, and it'll be reasonable to maybe even some premiums. We're seeing premiums in a few companies these days, but not too many. I think more could be trading at those premium levels. So yeah, I think that our days are numbered as far as finding these super cheap ones, and you want to be looking for those that can break out and reach some new highs, and I think we cover a lot of those.
Okay, that's it for this week's show. If you're a fan of the information, please subscribe to the channel and share the broadcast. Back next week with more informative equity news, CEO debriefs that you can utilize to enhance your portfolio.